Part 119. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1182. The teacher in the middle, who was the referee of the game, held a temporary pointer in his hand, which he used as a conductor for the game. As soon as the whistle blew, Zhou Zhan rushed towards Fu Ying like a crazy bull. The teacher's expression changed. He froze and was about to stop him, but the next moment Fu Ying stepped aside. Zhou Zhan moved so quickly that he couldn't even stop himself and rushed over his head. Fu Ying waited until he had taken 2 steps before following him. He clasped his arms behind his back with both hands, and swept his legs towards his ankles. Zhou Zhan's arms were restrained, and because he had just run over in a hurry, he couldn't stand at the moment. Stable, his body couldn't help but fall down after being hooked by him. When he came back to his senses and became angry and wanted to pull Fu Ying's clothes, Fu Ying had already knocked him down. He fell to the ground with a bang, and his body, the bones, seemed to be falling apart. Beep, the referees blew their whistles, and it was obvious that he had lost the wrestling match. "You're cheating," in front of so many third-year students. He actually lost the first round. Zhou Zhan's face turned red, his eyes seemed to burst into flames, and he sat up in embarrassment, rubbed his arms, and yelled a little unconvinced. When Fu Ying turned his arm over just now, his arm was twisted when he fell. Now he felt no pain in his anger, just soreness and numbness. With so many people around staring at him, Zhou Zhan's feelings of resentment, anger, and shame surged up one after another. After he shouted at Fu Ying turned around and glanced at him. "You fell down. That's because you cheated. If it doesn't work, try again." He was embarrassed in front of so many people. Zhou Zhan clenched his hands into fists and hit the ground hard. His teeth were clenching, and the veins on his forehead were popping out, looking extremely excited. Lily was sitting in the crowd, and when she saw the scene she couldn't help but said, "If you lose, you lose. A soldier never tires of cheating. Besides, when you were competing, did you say you couldn't cheat?" Zhou Zhan himself was cheating the most. At this moment, he was cheating. Even if you lose, you still have the nerve to make trouble. Comparing one's own strengths with others' weaknesses is worse than losing. As soon as Lily said this, Zhou Zhan was furious. He watched Fu Ying sneer at him, stretched out his hand to straighten his barely wrinkled blue shirt, and then looked at himself. When he fell to the ground, his elbows broke the skin, and his body was covered with blood. It was Hui. Zhou Zhan knew that his expression must be very ugly without looking at it in the mirror. His mind was empty. All that was left was the scene when Fu Ying looked at him with a sneer, anger mixed with embarrassment and unwillingness to admit defeat. He jumped up and rushed towards Fu Ying. He wants to knock Fu Ying to the ground. He doesn't care whether he competes or not, whether he loses or not. He wants to win a good fight and make up for the dignity he lost. Fu Ying had already turned around and walked towards Lily, with his back to Zhou Zhan. Therefore, he didn't see Zhou Zhan jump up. Everyone in the playground couldn't help but exclaimed in surprise when they saw this scene, and the teacher was so frightened that he blew his whistle. "Zhou Zhan." Zhou Zhan jumped up very quickly. As a basketball player, he has great jumping ability and running ability. He was very fast. He rushed towards Fu Ying and even stretched out his arm to strangle Fu Ying's neck. He clenched his other hand into a fist and raised it with a ferocious expression on his face. "I've wanted to hit you for a long time, pretty boy," he said before he finished speaking. Fu Ying, who was restrained by him, remained calm. The moment he strangled his neck, Fu Ying had already taken a deep breath. He didn't reach out to grab his hand in panic because Zhou Zhan strangled his neck. Instead, he twisted his body. He opened a little sideways and ignored his raised arms. Holding his shoulders with both hands, he bent his upper body down, and with a little force, Zhou Zhan was thrown over his shoulders, and fell to the ground with a bang again. Before the fist in Zhou Zhan's hand fell on Fu Ying's face, he even had a proud smile at the corner of his mouth, but it soon turned into panic. He involuntarily let go of Fu Ying's hand, and wanted to use both hands to he grabbed something to stabilize his body, but in the end he still failed. His legs fell to the upper body before he fell. This time Fu Ying didn't simply knock Zhou Zhan to the ground like before. This fall made Zhou Zhan unable to recover for a long time. He rolled around on the ground and collapsed on the ground gasping for breath. Yingke said, "You want to hit me?" He stretched out his foot and kicked Zhou Rui hard on the waist. He received the blow, and even though he tried not to scream in front of his love rival, his face was still pale. Zhou Zhan was kicked sideways, and Fu Ying kicked him again. He groaned in pain and fell to the ground after being kicked. Fu Ying stepped heavily on his back and knocked him down. One arm was turned over, the other hand grabbed Zhou Zhan's hair, and pushed his face to the ground with force. Everyone only heard a bang sound, and Zhou Zhan himself was knocked dizzy. Emotions such as pain, humiliation, shock, and disbelief surged into his heart. He almost didn't have the courage to raise his head. He took the initiative to provoke, but unexpectedly lost. "Do you think it's just you who wants to hit me and I don't want to hit you?" Fu Ying grabbed Zhou Zhan's hair again. His scalp hurt, and he was forced to look up. The bump just now made his forehead turn red. His nose and lips were covered with dirt, and he looked miserable. Fu Ying was still beside him, smiling and whispering, "I've wanted to hit you for a long time, I don't know how high the sky is." He knew that Zhou Zhan had an impulsive personality, so he deliberately threw him first. Let him take the initiative to beat him again after suffering a loss. In fact, Fu Ying was also worried that if he beat Zhou Zhan, the teacher would come to stop him, so he waited for Zhou Zhan to hit him. At this moment, he was resisting and fought back, and no one who was short-sighted would come to stop him. He hit Zhou Zhan 2 or 3 times in a row, and his forehead soon became bruised and swollen. Fu Ying then slapped him in the face. This slap shattered Zhou Zhan's pride. He was almost blinded all at once. The expressions of sympathy, shock, and ridicule from the people around him passed before his eyes. This feeling even outweighed the pain of being beaten. He wished that there were cracks in the ground at this time, so that he could get in there. Fu Ying stood up and adjusted his clothes. The referee teacher on the side was stunned by this incident and could not recover. He held the pointer in his hand. Fu Ying walked over and snatched the pointer. Zhou on the ground. Zhan seemed to have come back to his senses. He stood up unsteadily, wiped his face with his hands, and stared at Fu Ying fiercely. Without saying a word, Fu Ying took the pointer and rushed towards Zhou Zhan. The pointer was like a long sword in his hand, stabbing and picking, frightening Zhou Zhan so much that he couldn't help but dodge. Occasionally, when it hit him, it hurt like hell. He didn't know if it was because Fu Ying had just hit him, which made him a little scared. At this moment, he didn't even have the courage to risk being hit by the pointer and fight back. The pointer hit him, making a snap sound. Every time it hit him, a red mark appeared on his body. He didn't give up, and suddenly picked up the pointer in his hand and stabbed him head on. There were eyes on his face. It didn't take long for the pain to subside after some beatings on the body. If the eyeball was poked, it would be a big deal. Zhou Zhan retreated quickly in a panic, but the faster he retreated, the faster the support came in. He retreated nervously, and suddenly his foot hooked his own. He couldn't control his body, and he sat down with a bang. On the way up, if I hadn't stretched out my hands to hold on, I would have fallen down long ago. When the pointer in Fu Ying's hand was about to poke his eyes, Zhou Zhan was so frightened that he screamed. When everyone was startled, he suddenly stopped. "I have been practicing fighting since I was 5 years old. Fencing is just one of them. How about competing with me?" "Fighting and basketball," he sneered with the corner of his mouth raised, his expression cold and not contemptuous, but it was exactly this understatement made it even more obvious that he did not take Zhou Zhan's humiliation into consideration. Thinking about how I had challenged him to a duel before, and how I wanted to beat him to pieces. Now, no matter whether he cheated or attacked him by himself, he couldn't defeat him. He was still chasing him all over the place, even if he was like this. One sentence proved that he was not as easy to bully as Zhou Zhan originally imagined. Zhou Zhan felt hurt and ashamed for a moment. People around him could hear Fu Ying's words clearly. There were whispers in his ears. No one applauded or spoke. But it was this kind of silence that made Zhou Zhan even more excited. Zhan heard the sound of his own heartbeat and the sound of his blood flowing under tension and fear. What do you want to compare with me? Lily will always be mine. Fu Ying stared at Zhou Zhan condescendingly. After saying this, he threw the pointer into the teacher's arms, walked towards Lily, and suddenly held her face. He lowered his head and kissed her heavily on the lips in front of so many people. In the 3 years since they had been dating, the most he had done was kiss her forehead and hold her hands. This was the first time he kissed her like this, and in front of so many people. The people around him were blushing, and some people took the lead in whistling and applauding. The atmosphere that had been chilled by Zhou Zhan suddenly became lively again. Zhou Zhan stood up in the playground. At this point, no matter how stupid he was, he knew that if he still refused to give in, he would only be humiliating himself. It was not that Fu Ying could not beat him, he just didn't want to fight with him. Just fight. My previous thoughts seemed really ridiculous now. I was afraid that I would look like a clown in front of him. The looks from the people around him made him uncomfortable. Fortunately, he had graduated. He endured the pain and ran out of the place. Not far away, there were excited compliments from people, saying that Fu Ying was good at reading and knew martial arts. After Zhou Zhan left, the remaining people were extremely excited. Young men and women of this age thought that fighting for a girl was the most glorious thing. Fu Ying did not show his real face. He looked thin and tall, and he looked like he was not good at sports. However, he knocked such a strong Zhou Zhan to the ground. He is handsome and has good grades. He was originally an image that girls would be attracted to. Now he has a super high martial arts value, which makes a group of classmates even more excited. Dear friends of Yunkai, there are 3 days left until the double is doubled. Vote for me. I will show you my cuteness. Use your votes to buy. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan ERWR. Chapter 1183. What was a good farewell party turned into a personal show for Fu Ying. That night, everyone in the graduating class of the 3rd grade of high school participated. Although not all the students in the entire grade gathered together, each class had its own territory. Here, the commotion was so loud, how could everyone not know about it? The story spread that night, and people spread the news vividly, saying how useless Zhou Zhan was and how brave he was in helping Ying. Zhou Zhan booked a ticket back to the county seat the next day. It was obviously a big shame and he couldn't lose. Face it. Lily wanted to leave, but Fu Ying asked her to stay for 2 more days. The school is on holiday and everyone is empty. The door of the girls' dormitory has to be locked. Her luggage has already been taken home. This trip to the imperial capital is actually to collect the notice and attend the party. The school is staying at the moment. No, Fu Ying asked her to stay for another 2 days, and Lily was ready to book a room in a hotel in the imperial capital for 1 night. She had saved some money during her 3 years of high school. Although the cost of living in the imperial city was high, she could not afford to live there, but Fu Ying said she didn't need it. He has his own separate residence in imperial capital, a small apartment with 3 bedrooms and 1 living room. It is located in the most prosperous city center, next to a 6-star chain hotel. In the evening, Li's father called to urge Lily to go back. She did well in the exam this time and passed the Imperial Capital University. This was a very honorable thing in the county. Many relatives came to congratulate her. Lee's father was going to make a few sacrifices. Table Wine excitedly asked her to go back quickly. Bring that friend of yours with you, and your mother and I will do a fortune telling for you. I'm not sure if you're right or not. His daughter has been dating Fu Ying for 3 years. Although Lee's father has objected, he also hopes that his daughter will not fall in love at a young age. But the objection was of no use at all, and as time passed, Leffa gradually accepted his fate. In addition, Lily did not waste her studies because of falling in love. On the contrary, after joining Fu Ying, their grades improved a lot, and both of them were admitted to Imperial University. Zhou Zhan, whom Li's father was optimistic about at the beginning, not only talked nonsense to harm his daughter's reputation, but now he is even more useless. When he was a freshman in high school, he told everyone that Lily had neglected her studies and was playing basketball by herself. Now she was doing well in basketball, but her grades were poor. When the scores came out, the Zhou family was too embarrassed to tell anyone how many points he had scored in total. The Zhou family is borrowing money from everywhere. It seems that Zhou Zhan is going to a school in Nanjing to study architecture. Li's father didn't mean to mention Zhou Zhan to Lily, but he just wanted to say a few more words to his daughter. When Li Bei was with him all day long when he was a child, he was busy with work and family, and had very little time to spend with his daughter. Now that his daughter has grown up, he has more time, but unfortunately, his daughter already has her own things to do. Even if the father and daughter wanted to talk, they could only rely on this phone to communicate. Lily listened to Li's father take care of the family affairs. In the past 2 years, Li's father's personality has become much more restrained. When chatting with his daughter, he no longer had the same habit of giving orders. He talked about the family's shortcomings, and Lily listened quietly. After chatting like this for more than 20 minutes, Li's father was satisfied. You have booked the ticket, and Dad will pick you up. In fact, Lily didn't have anything at all. This time she came to the imperial capital to attend a party, and besides her ID card, she brought. Fu Ying said that the household registration book might be used in school, so she brought it with her, so she packed it in a small bag with her. She had taken the train from the imperial capital back to the county seat so many times in the past 3 years, but in Li's father's eyes now she is still the little girl who needed him to send her when she went to the imperial capital. I'll take you back. Fu Ying sat aside and eavesdropped. Leffa's voice was loud. Came out through the microphone. The room was quiet again, and he heard all the conversation between father and daughter. Hearing Li's father ask Lily to take him back, Fu Ying curled up his lips and gestured like he was driving. He signaled to send Lily back. He had already obtained his driver's license when he was 18, how about we propose marriage by the way? He said it in a joking tone. But his expression was very serious. Hearing this, Lily felt bad and glared at him. The Chinese state stipulates that one reaches adulthood at the age of 18, which means that one has the ability to act and make judgments at the age of 18, and is an independent adult. Can have autonomy in marriage. Logically speaking, it's perfectly fine for her to get married, but Lily doesn't want to get married so soon, not to mention that Li's father probably won't agree. But she didn't have time to talk to him at the moment. Lily chatted with Li's father first, saying that Fu Ying would send her back so that Li's father wouldn't have to answer the phone. After saying goodnight and hanging up the phone, Lily said, "My family will not agree to my marriage." Li's father waited for 3 years before finally agreeing to let Lily take Fu Ying back. You must know that in the past few years, he had been explicitly hinting that he hoped Lily and Fu Ying would break up. Now Li's father finally compromised. Fu Ying wanted to get married. Lily shook her head. I've always known how to get married. Let's get married first. Let's get the certificate. We can save the wedding for after graduation. Fu Ying got closer and closer to her, and his hand quietly moved towards her waist. Look at that time in high school. At that time, Zhou Zhan was like that. He knew that your famous flower had an owner, but he still wanted to fight with me. After getting the certificate, he still knows how to study when he should study. He turned his face sideways and stared at Lily with a seductive expression, wanting to. He persuaded her, our current situation is just missing that thing. Anyway, you will be mine sooner or later. What's the difference between sooner or later? He paused, raised his eyebrows again, and said with a half smile, is there anything else? What are you worried about? He usually doesn't talk much, but talking about this now proves that he has actually made up his mind. Li Yangzi is a domineering and persistent person. Whatever he decides, he always finds ways to achieve it. Lily's scalp is numb. Seeing him getting closer and closer, her body falls back involuntarily. Can your family agree? Let's talk about me. You should also know about Dad's character. If you want to propose marriage, you still have to discuss it with both parents. I invited 2 people to pretend. After he finished speaking, he seemed to remember what he had not told Lily, and frowned. My parents are abroad. Lily became very angry after hearing what he said. He also wanted to talk about lifelong matters. His parents were not around during this mission, so he thought of hiring someone to pretend to be her. If Li's father knew about it, he would probably be furious. She stared at Fu Ying, smiling and saying nothing. Fu Ying looked at her for a long time, and soon his hands grabbed her waist dishonestly. Okay, I don't want to call them back. He paused for a long time. If they come back, your parents will probably not be happy. Lily said nothing and listened to Fu Ying's explanation. Fu's family had a poor background in his early years. Fu Ying's grandfather was just a gangster in the imperial capital. He lived a life of licking blood, doing illegal things and committing all kinds of evil. He remained single until he was 30 years old, and finally married a daughter-in-law. After giving birth to Fu Ying's father, he soon passed away in an accident. Fu's father did not live a good life honestly with the settlement allowance. Instead, he was bolder than his father and still joined a gang. He was more courageous and even more shameless than Fu's father, and finally became a gangster in the western district of the imperial capital. Boss, Fu Ying's mother was originally just one of his women, but I wonder if Fu Ying's father had done many bad things and got retribution. Among the many women, only one got pregnant. Anyway, he was not young, so he simply married women. After getting married, he cleaned up the business in his name. Some shady places were converted into nightclubs. He used his connections to buy a piece of land and became a developer. It was a time when business opportunities were good. Over the past 10 years, his assets have increased hundreds of times. Now he is working as a supporter. In summary, I started investing in some foreign industries a few years ago. I often fly abroad and don't spend much time at home. He looks ferocious, and he is not a good person at first glance. Your father is going to meet someone, and he will definitely not agree to your marriage. The most important thing is that his mother has a typical lover's face. A typical big-breasted and brainless person, with nothing but beauty inside. These 2 people are not good people at first glance. It is better to spend money to hire 2 good family members to play the role. As long as he says a few more words, Yi Li's father will. If you have a rigid character, you might get dizzy and relax. As for whether it will be exposed in the future, anyway, he will have obtained the certificate by then. Even if Li's father regrets being deceived, he may not be able to tell his daughter to divorce him. Having been with Lily for 3 years, Fu Ying had a lot of knowledge about Li's father's character. He thought of several ways to fight Li's father, but this was the best. Lily was speechless for a moment after hearing his explanation. If he does this, Li's father will probably vomit blood when he finds out the truth. Fu Ying seemed to know what she was thinking, and curled up his lips. You don't have to worry about my parents. The old man is just angry. At most, he comes to me. He will never blame you in the slightest, he said very firmly. Obviously Fufu had suffered a lot from him and suffered from his schemes in the past. He had already said this, and obviously he could not tolerate Lily's rejection. He pressed his body forward and pressed Lily onto the sofa, watching her arms support her. She was still trying to escape, but he had quietly moved his hand to her waist before. Now he held her down tightly, making her unable to run away, and then asked Lily with a smile. "Have you thought clearly?" He rubbed his hands smoothly on his waist, and Lily almost had goosebumps standing up at his touch. She couldn't help but press her back closer to the back of the sofa, and asked unwillingly, "What if think about it clearly, what will happen to you if I don't agree? If you don't agree, let's get on the bus first and then pay for the ticket. We'll get things done together today and get the certificate before going home tomorrow." After he said that, Lily regretted it. No wonder he seemed to have done it unintentionally when he called. He mentioned that the school might need to use the household registration book, so he asked her to bring it with her so that she would be prepared. He was probably already waiting for her here. If Lily guessed correctly, Fuying might have all his books. Asking for votes, in order to prevent the pointer from swallowing votes, I also asked for it in the text. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1184. Lily took a deep breath and pressed his dishonest hand on her waist. As a result, she lost one arm that originally supported her body. Fuying easily pressed her onto the sofa. Her legs were tightly pressed and she still wanted to struggle. One of his hands was already trying to touch under the hem of her skirt. Lily quickly closed her legs. "If I agree." As soon as she finished speaking. Couldn't help but raised her neck and bit him. Fuying smiled lightly. "If you agree, you will get married sooner or later anyway, so there is no difference between sooner or later." Even though he has no memory, his cunning character has not changed at all. He pressed his lips gently. The girl's lips were like jelly, soft and soft. He imitated the scene on TV and stretched out tentatively. He took out his tongue and licked it, and she still had the fragrance of soap on her body. Fuying drove Lily back the next day, and Li's father was already watching. After hearing Fuying's name many times, Li's father met Fuying for the first time. He was not the kind of guy Li's father imagined, who wore glasses and deceived his daughter into being evil. Instead, he was so handsome that Li's father was so handsome. My father was a little surprised. Last night Li's father had already informed his relatives one by one. Now the relatives gathered around Fuying and asked him his name and family. He also told them one by one. Compared with Zhou, Fuying was not only not inferior to him, but even better. A bit outstanding. In the kitchen, Li's mother called Lily to help with the cooking, and asked her daughter, "Have you thought about it all? Are you sure you have no contact with Zhou?" Fuying was still chatting with relatives outside, and a group of 7 ants and 8 ants took him. He didn't panic at all when surrounded by people, and he didn't blush at all when people asked questions. He was able to advance and retreat in a controlled manner, coaxing a group of young and old women into smiling faces. When Lemu poked her head out to take a look, he was wearing jeans and a simple white shirt on his upper body. The cuffs were rolled up. Even though Li's mother originally had a bad impression of Fuying, the man who deceived her daughter so early, she couldn't help but praise Lily for her good taste. She mentioned Zhou, fearing that Fuying would hear it. He poked his head out to take a look, and Fuying happened to turn his head to look at her, smile, and ask if he wanted to help. Li's mother shook her head hurriedly, turned around and said to her daughter, "This one is really good at doing things." She was washing vegetables in her hands and glanced at her daughter. She lowered her head and looked listless. Thinking about what she saw at the beginning, she is still a little one. She was standing next to her feet. She didn't expect that she had grown so big in just a few years. "Oh, I really can't bear to let you get married. Originally, your father and I were thinking that it would be great to marry into the Joe family, right next to each other. It would be like sleeping in a different room." Both Lee's father and Lee's mother couldn't bear to part with their daughter, so they never did. He hoped that his daughter would marry outside the county town, so he was so enthusiastic about bringing her and Joanne K together. He didn't expect that the two people who looked so good when they were young would turn out to be like this when they grow up. "Mom, don't talk about Joanne." Lily's legs were weak and she couldn't find a place to sit down. At this party, he found an excuse to fight with Fuying again, and he got beaten. "You're making a fool of yourself." Joanne didn't even get into college with his current score. "Even if you just have to read it?" The family is also prepared to pay, but the Joe family's family background is similar to that of the Lee family, so how can they have the extra money to send him to a good school? Lee's mother also knew this and sighed, "This child seemed good at first, but I didn't expect it to change like this." Lily said nothing. Her waist and legs were weak. She washed 2 handfuls of vegetables, dried her hands, and hurried out to sit down. During the banquet, the relatives clamored for a drink, and Lee's father also drank. During the banquet, Lee's father drank 2 more drinks. Firstly, he was happy that his daughter had a future, and secondly, the visit of Fuying today was not as he imagined. Losing face to him actually made him gain face. Relatives were all praising him. Lee's father was a little moody at the wine table. "I don't know who mentioned it first." Lee's father drunkenly said that he was worried that his daughter would be played with in the future. This was originally just a drinking conversation at the dinner table, but Fuying argued with Lee's father for a few words. Lee's father felt a little unhappy, and his voice gradually became louder. Sitting at a separate table, Lemu heard the noise next door and became a little angry. "After 2 cups of yellow soup, he can't tell who is who." She wanted to stop Lee's father, but as can be imagined, there was no result. Lee's mother has always made the final decision on small things in the family, but once it was the big thing's turn, Lee's father became stubborn. He was the head of the family. Lee's father was really drunk, but Fuying was not. His eyes were clear, and he was obviously starting to give in at this moment. Lee's father was trapped. "Children, what kind of promises and guarantees are you talking about? What guarantees do you have? You also said that your family is rich. Nowadays, breaking up is like eating and drinking. What will happen if my best friend is teased by you in the future?" Lee's father said, "I have always been worried about this, and became even more worried when I heard that Fuying was from a good background. He was from the imperial capital, and his daughter was only from a small county town. Although she was beautiful, her family did not have much money. Who is my daughter? You can't even bully her." Lee's father was already talking a little loudly, and he was obviously drunk. Fuying added fuel to his anger. "I said I would marry her, not to play with her." "Why are you so sure?" Lee's father asked back. Fuying seemed to be irritated and said loudly, "Then I will marry her now. It's a deal." As soon as he said these words, Lee's father felt regretful when he woke up and realized what he had promised. He wanted to regret it, but Fuying didn't give him a chance at all. He said at that time that he would go back and ask his parents to get his ID card. Lee's father couldn't say anything about his regret. Fortunately, Fuying's parents looked gentle and the man wore glasses. The son looks like a scholar, and the woman also looks full of books. They seem to be sensible people and are very polite to Lily. Lee's father has a stubborn personality, and at this point, he has no choice but to bite the bullet. The two got their marriage certificate and made an appointment to have a wedding after graduating from college. Now Lee's father's objections were useless. He could only comfort himself that Fuying really wanted to marry Lily after all and was not playing tricks on her. He secretly told his daughter, she was still young, and asked her not to rush to get pregnant. His subconscious meaning was to prevent the two of them from having an intimate relationship too early so that her daughter would have a way out and have a choice in the future. But when Lily heard this, she couldn't help but smile bitterly. 4 years after graduating from college, the two held a wedding. The wedding was scheduled to be held once in Beijing and again in the county. 2 days before the wedding, Fu Ying received a phone call, and Lily heard it nearby. A man on the phone became furious. "Why did I embarrass you? You invited someone to pretend to be me to propose marriage, you unfilial son." After 4 years of marriage, Lily saw her real parents-in-law this time. Her father looked like a standard gangster boss, and her mother was a gorgeous figure. On the day of the wedding, Lee's father saw the temporarily changed in-laws. At this time, everyone was shocked. But the rice has become cooking pot, and it would be in vain to regret it now. This time, Zhou Zhan was not with Miss Yangting as in the plot. His grades were poor, so his family borrowed 60,000 yuan to help him study in an architecture school according to his wishes, but he was in school. After staying for 3 years, he drank and ate with the instructors and classmates all day long. He bragged about how much money his family had. His parents were civil servants and were very rich. He made his face swollen in school and pretended to be fat. When he had no money, he called home. If you need it, sometimes you can borrow it from your classmates if you don't have enough. I heard that he had a girlfriend when he was a sophomore, and they broke up with him not long after. After his junior year, he owed too much money in school, and debt collectors were calling his home. He didn't even dare to go to school anymore. In the end he had to drop out of school and work, but he had no diploma and did not learn any real skills in school. In addition, because he failed to pursue Lily, he is now getting worse and worse. The neighbors next door are talking a lot. His temper has become arrogant and sensitive, and his personality is very ambitious. He dislikes the less salary, and others look down upon him for jobs with high salaries. In the end, if you can't do a good job, you can't do a low job. At a young age, you don't even go to class, and you stay at home playing games every day. When Lily returned to the county to hold a banquet, almost all the neighbors next door went, but the Zhou family did not. At the banquet, Li's mother said with emotion, "The Zhou family is going to sell their house." As soon as she said this, the neighbors sitting at the same table all talked about it. Some people asked why, and some people curled their lips and smiled. Why else? It's not because of that unfilial son. Zhou Zhan has a high-level job, and now he stays at home for a long time without even going out. I heard that even the food has to be brought to the bedside. Hey, it's really too early to enjoy your blessings. At first I thought that boy Zhou Zhan was quite promising, but now it seems that your Lily is more powerful. He has a good diploma, high education, and good looks. He is also very promising when he marries a husband. There is money in Fu Ying. Early on it had already spread around, and everyone was praising Yorong. The Zhou family has lived here for more than 20 years and is very familiar with the old neighbors. But now they are forced to sell their house. They couldn't bear someone pointing fingers behind their backs, so they quickly sold the house at a low price. It was said that they bought a house in another part of the county. Half a year later, the land was divided and demolished. Bei's family was allocated 2 houses, and the demolition money was compensated. Li's father couldn't bear to leave his daughter, so he simply sold the house together, and Fu Ying raised some money. He opened another house near Fu Ying in the imperial capital. I bought a house, and occasionally I would hear some news about the Zhou family when I called my neighbors to chat with them. I heard that the Zhou family is not having a good time now. Zhou's father is still earning a meager salary. Zhou Zhan is old and his family is too poor to buy a house. He himself is not good at work. No girl is willing to marry him. So far, he is still unmarried, and when people talk about it, they all lament that it's a good thing Lily didn't marry this worthless thing. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan Erwr. Chapter 1185. It was not a solution for Li Yangzi to be stuck in the mission, but he told Lily that he already had a solution. As for what kind of solution, he just gave Lily a meaningful look in the end and said nothing. Information about Lily in the starry sky slowly emerged. Gender, female, variable. Name, Lily. Age, 21. Intelligence, 90, out of 100. Appearance, 95, out of 100. Physical strength, 90, full score of 100. Force, 96, out of 100. Spirit, 91, out of 100. Reputation, 11, out of 100 points. Skills, 9 Yang Manual, 9 Yin Manual, Tiandamen Tao Ti Ching, Zone, Southern Territory Gu Technique, Star Training Technique. Specialties, Advanced Cooking Skills, Advanced Acting Skills, 5 Elements and Bagua Skills, Proficient, B Control Skills. Charisma, 60, out of 100. Mark, Royal True Dragon Spirit. This time, except for the increase in force, there are no other changes in the attribute values. Senior brother, who are you going to send to participate in that Taoist association this time? An old male voice suddenly spoke. As soon as he finished speaking, someone said, last year's Taoist association was too boring. A group of people wearing clothes the Taoist monk Shangpai has organized some kind of association. He knows nothing about the things passed down by his ancestors, and he still talks about being a president. At best, it is just a cover-up for outsiders and embarrassing. Anyway, I won't go. Every time when a council is organized, they don't know anything, so they just ask us to stand there and be a foil. Last time, Lao Ding was fooled and didn't say a word. He just stood there with a silly smile. As soon as he finished speaking, the place fell silent quickly. Lily was drowsy and slowly opened her eyes. This is a hall with wooden pillars around it. The glass is covered with bright yellow talisman papers. There are about a dozen people in the hall. He is sitting now and seems to be in a meeting. Sitting in the middle is an old man wearing a grey Mao suit. He has long hair tied into a bun and fixed on top of his head with a wooden hairpin. He has a serious expression. Most of the people in the venue are elderly, both men and women. The older ones sit in front. A younger and slightly younger one like Lily, sitting in the corner of the back row. She closed her eyes just as she entered the mission. But because she was sitting in the back, the people in the room seemed to be discussing something, so they didn't notice her distraction. Alas, the old man in grey tunic suit sitting in the middle sighed, and reached out helplessly to touch his grey hair. I am helpless. If there were other ways to think of, I would not take this trick. Yes. You also know our situation. If we don't go. The old man didn't finish his words. Everyone was silent. It took a while before someone suggested, since we are going to send people, it doesn't have to be us, let's let the younger generation go. Anyway, those people from some association are just pretending to be gods and ghosts, and they are just deceiving ordinary people. In my opinion, Xiao Song it's good with Shen Chun. Upon hearing these two names, the person next to Lily turned to look at her. The man was about 25 or 6, and he didn't have a bun like most of the people here. Instead, he got a popular haircut. Press with hairspray. The man has red eyes with raised corners and is wearing a suit. He is incompatible with the people around him and this antique house. When he turned to look at Lily. Seeing Lily looking at him, he grinned at Lily. He even reached out and put his hand on Lily's waist. His movements were natural and his expression was a bit intimate. It was obvious that he knew the original owner, and maybe he had some special relationship with the original owner. This is a good idea. As soon as the person who made the suggestion finished speaking, someone made a fist with one hand and slapped him hard. Xiao Song and Shen Chun are good looking, and they look good when taking pictures. The old man in the middle was a little hesitant and frowned. These two people haven't memorized a few Taoist formulas yet. When he spoke, everyone in the room turned to look at Lily. Silly has come to his senses. I am afraid that one of the Xiao Song and Shen Chun these people are talking about is her. According to her past experience in tasks, even if her surname changes, her name should not change. So if nothing unexpected happens, the Xiao Song these people are talking about should be her. As for Shen Chun, she turned around and looked. She glanced at the handsome man next to her. Just when the man turned around, someone suggested that Xiao Song and Shen Chun should join some Taoist association, so she guessed that Shen Chun should be this young man. Senior brother, don't worry. Generally speaking, the pretentious people in the Taoist association will do some stunts to increase their influence. Last time Lao Ding went there was nothing wrong at all. The so-called thing was just to perform for those people. Seeing this, Lao Ding went to work as a helper and took a few photos. He was watched a few times like a monkey, but without doing anything. He came back dejected and was embarrassed for several days. They are willing to meet people. Although Xiao Song and his two brothers are not very good at practicing, they are just going for a trip. How dangerous is the urine of people from the Taoist association? Just take pictures, nothing will happen. As soon as the man finished speaking, the old man in Chinese tunic suit sitting in the middle hesitated, glanced at Lily, and finally nodded. When this matter came to an end, a beautiful woman in her 40s said, "Now that this matter has been settled, I would like to ask, when can I get Xiao Chun and Lily's wedding wine?" She had a joking look on her face, and the man sitting next to Lily already laughed. "Aunt Gu, stop joking, what are you talking about? Just hold it off. You two have grown up as childhood sweethearts. When you were young, you were still talking about marrying Lily as your bride. You are not young yet, and you are still holding it off." As soon as the woman finished speaking, someone spoke up, "I'm afraid senior brother Shen is impatient with the wait." Everyone laughed, and the old man sitting in the middle also laughed and said, "If you two get married, the old man will also give you something good." When the man heard this, he couldn't sit still. "I don't know much about Taoism. Since it has been decided that Ziahe and I are going, I will go and prepare first." After he said this, he stood up and pushed away the chair and ran away. When the woman saw this scene, she shook her head and sighed, "This child. Maybe it's fate that hasn't come yet, so don't force it." The man sitting next to her comforted her, and the woman nodded and stopped talking. Lily had originally guessed that the so-called Chen Chun was that man, but now she was convinced. Everyone said a few words, and the old man told her to leave in 3 months, and also told her to stay here and not run around in the past few months. Although Lily had not yet accepted the plot, she still forcibly wrote down what the old man said, nodded one by one, and then exited the hall. Outside the hall is an old courtyard. The courtyard is quite large, equivalent to a small basketball court. It is full of flowers and plants. The house still retains its earlier layout, and even has a good feng shui position. To be particular, Lily only took one look and saw that the house was built according to the 8 diagrams formation, which has the function of gathering fortune. However, the person who set up feng shui was not very good at setting up feng shui, so he made a specious arrangement, but the effect was not very good. Seeing this courtyard, and then thinking about the conversations she heard from those people when she was in the courtyard, Lily still didn't know that she might have to deal with ghosts and the like again on her mission this time. She had just entered the mission and had not yet received the plot. There were many houses in this courtyard house and the place was large. The young people who had just left had already disappeared. The group of people in the house were still talking about something, but they were just talking to each other. It didn't matter to Lily, so let her come out first. There was no one in the courtyard at the moment. She walked around the back of a house. Rows of wintersweet trees were planted on the wall behind. The wintersweet flowers were not in bloom in midsummer. Not far ahead, there was a wide corner. A stone table was set up in the place, with a chessboard printed on it. There was no one around, and it was quiet here. Lily simply sat over, put her hand on the stone table, and began to absorb the plot. In the age of ending Dharma, the spread of Taoism has been very weak. After the founding of the Republic of China, as science gradually developed, feudal superstition was naturally eliminated. In this era, the development from generation to generation has caused many things passed down by the ancestors to be lost day by day. When Song Lily's grandfather was a child, because his family was poor, his parents sent him to a Taoist temple in the mountains to become a Taoist priest. Song Lily's grandfather was quite talented in learning Taoism. At that time, the development of the times was not so fast, and many people believed in the theory of ghosts. He went up the mountain when he was a child, and when he came down from the mountain in his late 30s, he usually replaced him. He read fortune tellers, exorcised ghosts, and drew talismans, but he also saved a fortune. At the age of 32, he married a wife and gave birth to Lily Song's father. After Song's father was born, Lily Song's grandfather thought that after giving birth to a son, he would naturally inherit his family business, so he taught him Taoism from an early age. Unfortunately, Lily Song's grandfather had caught up with the good times at that time, and learned Taoism. Later, he had food to eat, clothing to wear, and even a daughter-in-law. But when it came to Song Beihi's father's generation, things gradually declined. Firstly, Song's father's qualifications were mediocre, and secondly, what Song Lily's grandfather himself learned was patchy and not very refined. Taoism was passed down from generation to generation, so naturally one generation was inferior to the other. At that time, Father Song could only draw a few talismans and sell them to some villagers at low prices. In the later period, the Song family moved to the village. Several of Lily Song's grandfather's former senior brothers did not do well, so they jointly built a large courtyard and took root in the village. They occasionally tested and measured calligraphy for the villagers. Measuring graves, calculating horoscopes, and selling some peace charms to make a living. These people who have some ability are forced to have no way out, but the funny thing is that those who are trying to sell their dogs are the so-called masters of metaphysics who know nothing and can only talk about some bullshit. Instead, they are regarded as celebrities, have formed a so-called Taoist association. They give sermons on TV all day long and earn a lot of money. This New Year's Day is double. I really want to thank you all for your unwavering support. I went to Shanghai to attend the press conference. I coded the words on the plane on the 5th. On the 6th, the press conference started. As a result, I was there early in the morning. I posted a chapter and then went to bed late. I didn't eat breakfast after sleeping in the morning. I was so nervous that when I held a press conference in the evening, I started putting on makeup at 3 p.m. and went back after 11 p.m. My feet were broken from wearing a pair of high heels. I was so tired and paralyzed that I couldn't write at all. I'm sorry to everyone, and I will remember to make up for whatever I owe. As a result, I was also heartbroken. The photos didn't look good, the words were poorly coded, I owed so many updates, and I made the babies anxious. Also, if you want to see my photos, follow Sina Weibo and guess which one is me. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1186. Every year, the Taoist and Buddhist Association holds a ceremony, which is tracked by the television station. Every year, a large number of people sign up to tell about the supernatural and inexplicable things in their families, and the association sends people to solve it for them. This is an advertisement. The people in the Taoist Association themselves don't know any magic, so they need to hire outsiders at this time. It was okay in the first few years, and occasionally they would encounter a few real ghosts, but once they encounter this thing, these Taoist priests are not very clever in their spells, and they are very likely to have accidents. Not only will they lose their own reputation, but it will also affect the association's golden signboard. Therefore, later on, the two religious associations simply start asking for help. At that time, it will be enough to send someone to come forward and go through the motions. In the past years, the association's favorite thing was to invite older people who seemed to be immortals to fill the facade. What Lily heard in the hall before the Taoist priest named Lao Ding was one of Song Bei's grandfather's junior disciples. He ended up accompanying her to perform a scene, stood awkwardly for a long time, and finally left. After I collected some money, I was so ashamed that I hid in the house for half a month and didn't dare to go out. This year the association sent people over again, saying that they were inviting people to do a drama again. Lily Song and Chen Chun in the plot were also sent there just like this time. But this time there was a turmoil after going there. At that time, after Lily Song's grandfather moved the house, one of the senior brothers, named Shen, gave birth to a grandson. The child was born at a bad time and needed some yang energy in his name, so Shen Chun gave birth to a grandson. He won't be called Shen Chun now, but after he was born, the Shen family's grandfather calculated his birth date and named him Shen Yang. At that time, there were many people named Yang, but the bad thing was the word Chen. The two characters are combined to form Shenyang, which is a place name. Shen Chun was laughed at once when he was in elementary school. He had to change his name and had to figure it out again when he came back. That's why I came up with the word spring. The word spring is good. Spring is the season when all things revive. It has a good meaning. In addition, the word spring contains the word. It means sunshine, so it's better to change the name now. Shen Chun and Song Lily were childhood sweethearts. They also played the game of pretending to be husband and wife. People in the courtyard were also happy to see this happen and hoped that the two of them would get married. Grandpa Shen also hoped that Shen Chun would grow up. In the future, he will be able to inherit his own mantle, pass on this technique, and carry it forward. Unexpectedly, Shen Chun has been outgoing and naughty since he was a child, and he does not believe in Taoism. And the funny thing is that as a descendant of a Taoist family, Shen Chun relied on the money his grandfather Shen saved when he was a Taoist priest to grow up well when he was a child. However, Shen Chun did not believe in the theory of ghosts and gods. He believed in science and thought it was ridiculous that the people in his family were talking too much. He didn't believe in so-called ghosts, was very dissatisfied with his family's propaganda of feudal superstition, and looked down upon these old people who were stubborn about the past. On the contrary, Lily Song is well-behaved, introverted, and very diligent. She is just like her father, with average talent, but she works very hard and memorizes Taoist secrets non-stop every day. She is cute and cute. Shen Chun also liked her when he was young. After talking to her for a while, I later found her behavior of believing in Taoism to be very ridiculous. I thought that she was obviously young and should not be as pedantic as those old men. After talking to her several times, the two gradually became separated. After that, although Shen Chun still looked close to her. But whenever the elders in the family urged the two of them to get married, he always pushed back to waiting until they were older. This push came to the time when Shen Chun was nearly 30 years old, and Lily Song was already 26. He never mentioned it again. In fact, although the two of them still held hands and hugged each other's waists and other intimate behaviors, Lily Song knew whether Shen Chun liked her or not. Even though the two of them were still disguised as boyfriend and girlfriend, they were still in the same relationship after all. He never thought about marrying himself, even if he was perfunctory with Lily Song. He just dragged her along with Lily Song, thinking that she was a good marriage partner, but he didn't love her enough, and it would be a pity to break up, so it's been delayed until now. Until this time when people from the Taoism Research Association came to invite the two of them, the elders thought it was just a funny show, but they didn't expect that Lily Song would encounter a fatal crisis here. At first it was just a show, but the ferocious ghost zombies actually appeared. It was precisely because the people in the Taoist Association had no real skills, and most of the people invited were empty shells, so there were countless casualties. Shen Chun was also here. In this incident, I finally saw a ghost and believed it. They met a female ghost here. Song Lily Deifa Wimo fell into her trap and died of her injuries. She used Lily Song's body to possess her body to seduce Shen Chun, but in the end she fell in love with Shen Chun. She fell in love with him at first sight and was reluctant to harm him. In the end, she turned against him and helped Shen Chun and others escape from that place. There were probably dozens of people from the Taoist Association and the Buddhist Association that day, but only Shen Chun came out in the end. Song Lily also died there. The female ghost came back to life through Song Lily's body. Shen Chun found that she also fell in love with this person. Possessed by the reborn female ghost, the two returned to their hometown and held a successful marriage. Because of their shallow Taoist skills, the elders in the family didn't know that the real Lily Song was dead. Now what was possessed in Lily Song's body was just a female ghost. When Lily Song finally managed to keep the clouds clear and see the moonlight, Shen Chun later discovered that there was really a ghost. The ghost did not dare to disbelieve in these things, so he made up his mind to study Taoism hard, and finally became a master of metaphysics, with a reputation far and wide, and the couple loved each other for a lifetime. Lily Song doesn't say it on the surface, but she is an introverted and stubborn person. She actually loves Shen Chun very deeply. She has been waiting for Shen Chun to marry her since she was a child. One day, she has been waiting for more than 10 years. Unfortunately, until she was in her 20s, Shen Chun did not mention the marriage to the Song family. It was not that she did not understand that Shen Chun did not like her, but she did not want to be the one to break up first. She knew in her heart that Shen Chun just regarded her as a donkey riding a horse, but Song Lily also had extravagant hopes in her heart that as long as Shen Chun didn't mention breaking up for a day, maybe the two of them would still get married. But until she died, her body finally married Shen Chun. Unfortunately, it was not she who married Shen Chun, but the female ghost who harmed her. Shen Chun could fall in love with anyone, but it was a pity that Lily Song was really unwilling to lose to such a female ghost. She was worse than a ghost, and she died in the end without even her parents knowing about her death. Before Behi could raise her head after receiving the plot, someone suddenly put his finger on her back. "Hey, what are you doing? You are hiding here to sleep. Why don't you go back to your room?" Shen Chun was fooled. The voice rang out. The relationship between the two was very ambiguous now, like lovers and friends. He did not admit that they were lovers. Whenever someone asked him jokingly when he would marry Lily Song, Shen Chun always said that was just an hourly joke. But every move he made and every intimate contact he had with Lily Song were closer than ordinary friends. As soon as he finished speaking, he even turned around and kissed Lily Song on the cheek. Her lips were soft and moist, giving her goosebumps all over her body. She immediately stood up and escaped from Shen Chun's control. "Why are you here? That group of old men just now are so annoying. They are holding a magic conference. In this modern society, where can there be any magic? Don't learn from them. It's like you are sick. Be a young and beautiful person." "Girl, she looks lifeless and boring." After finishing speaking, he curled his lips and stretched out his right index finger to scratch his cheek. "I'm afraid they will find me and hide behind me. Why are you here? Are you enlightened and don't want to listen to them anymore?" Lily frowned slightly, and he reached out to touch her face again. She didn't like the way he moved his hands and feet. She avoided Shen Chun's move, but Shen Chun came to hold her hand again. Lily Song would never refuse his intimate moves before, so he didn't notice the indifference and impatience in Lily's eyes now. He had never looked at Lily Song carefully, and he didn't know her true character. "I know that she is dull and boring, and does not have the charming charm that a woman of this age should have, and is very confused about her taste. Lily avoided his hand by arranging her hair again. Seeing him reaching out endlessly, Lily Song's wish was not to renew her relationship with Shen Chun. Regarding what he did in the plot, he was obviously heartbroken. She is a woman who is not good at words. She loves silently. She is still quiet after being cannon fodder for no reason. Since the original owner does not want Shen Chun to fall in love with her, Lily naturally does not want to have any relationship with Shen Chun. He always in order to get rid of him again, Lily asked, since you don't believe in magic conferences and think there are no magics in modern society, why do you still go to that Taoist Association conference? During the previous meeting, when everyone mentioned that he and Shen Chun should go to the Taoist Association, he had no objection at all. Now he said it behind his back. When Lily asked this, Shen Chun laughed out loud and reached out to pick her out. The original owner had long, silky black hair. The hair was of excellent quality and smooth. Shen Chun stretched out his hand to touch it, but Lily tilted his head to avoid it. He raised his eyebrows. Little girl, you are so brave. After he said this, he reached out and grabbed a strand of Lily's hair, and pulled it hard. Then he grinned as if the prank had succeeded. Who wouldn't go on a free trip? Are you stupid? If you learn Taoism from others, you'll get tumors on your brain, right? He said, stretching out his index finger to touch Lily's temple, gritting his teeth. Smiling, but not taking the shot lightly. Lily stretched out her hand to rub her scalp, looked up at Shen Chun and curled her lip. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 1187. Shen Chun sneered twice. What a trick. Well, tell me, by looking at my face, can you tell what kind of disaster I have? He sat on the square table in front of Lily with his half-assed posture. She stood on the ground with her legs diagonally on the ground, her legs were shaking, and she had a sarcastic smile and a mean look on her face. No matter how good her appearance was, Lily was still bored by the sight, and her eyelids drooped to block her heart. With his thoughts in mind, he said expressionlessly, I calculated that you will suffer physical and flesh pain in the future. Do you believe it? Shen Chun couldn't help but sneered, and just as he was about to speak, Lily suddenly raised her head and looked at him with the corners of her mouth raised. The next moment, she raised her toes and kicked Shen Chun's calf bone hard. The original owner was wearing a white t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers today. Although it was not as lethal as the pointed shoes, Lily kicked her with as much force as a baby. Shen Chun didn't expect her at all. There will be such a move. When it hurts, he bends down and subconsciously wants to rub his legs, but Lily grabs his hair, pulls it hard, and pokes his forehead with her fingertips. On the top, the original owner left a little nail, and the nail poked into Shen Chun's face, and immediately broke a piece of skin. Lily herself also felt a little pain in the nail, but she held it back. See, Taoism is useful. I told you that you will suffer the consequences of your skin and flesh. Now it doesn't apply. After she finished speaking, she took 2 steps back. Shen Chun was not a generous person, so there is no such thing as a gentleman not to hit a woman. He is like a child who cannot afford to lose. He has no sense of touch with women, even when he was fooling around with Lily Song when he was young. It didn't matter what he did. In fact, he often made Lily Song's body black and blue. Now that he was so big, he still dared to do it today. Lily Song loved him before. She didn't care about him, but Lily didn't want to tolerate him anymore. Now she fought him back, feeling angry. But Yi Chen Chun's character must be retributive, so after beating the person, she turned around and ran away. Shen Chun on the other end was cursing, stretched out his hand to rub his head, and sure enough he was shouting, "Damn girl, if you can, please stop." Lily wouldn't listen to him and ran out of the yard. Chen Chun suffered such a big loss today. Lily Song had never dared to do something to him like this before. It was so unreasonable today that he dared to hit him. He was furious. Taking advantage of his height and long legs, he grabbed Lily in a few steps and clenched his fists. "You dare to hit me, don't you want to, alive?" Lily Song must have been devoted to him in the past. He just treats people as nothing, just ignores them when he wants, and teases them if he wants to. Now that Lily doesn't want to ignore him, she just hits them and runs away, and he will catch up with them without mercy. Lily took a deep breath, remembering that what Shen Chun hated the most was people mentioning her marriage to him. Now he was pestering people. She suddenly raised her head and looked at Shen Chun with a solemn expression. "Chen Chun. He's not young anymore. Okay, okay, okay. I'm afraid of you, okay." Her tone was as if she was copied from the same mold as the old people in the courtyard. This was what Shen Chun couldn't bear the most. He suddenly raised his hand. "Get up," but finally couldn't hold it back. He slapped Lily on the back hard. "You learned to be nervous from following them before, and now you have to learn their tone of voice. Right." His slap was purely an act of revenge, and it was a heavy slap. Lily resisted the urge to pick up a brick and hit him to death, and rubbed her back with her backhand. "Am I wrong? In your heart, what do I think? What is it?" Shen Chun has always been so warm and ambiguous, which does not explain the relationship between him and Lily Song, nor makes people completely despair. Now Lily doesn't want to pay attention to him, but he is a thick-skinned person, and he seems to be fine for a while. If you come over, it's better to force him to explain clearly and let him stop pestering you in the future. In the past, Lily Song had indulged him. If he didn't reveal the relationship, she would hold back and keep silent. Now when Lily asked, Chen Chun's face became a little stiff. He frowned and laughed dryly. "You, what's going on? Are you okay?" He was out of shape and reached out to touch Lily's forehead, but Lily slapped him away and stared at him seriously. Chen Chun seemed to notice that Lily's attitude was a little different this time, and her expression was a little ugly. "Just because someone mentioned it just now, you want to ask about this?" "I've never thought about getting married." He waved his hand impatiently and reached out to scratch his hair. "It's still early, why do you want to get married?" "I'm still dizzy. I'm leaving, I'm bored to death, and my personality is like an old woman's." After saying this, Shen Chun put his hand in his trouser pocket without looking back and went out whistling. Lily looked at his back, and suddenly felt a pity for the original owner for no reason. She fell in love with such a man, but she didn't say the word love to her before she died. Shen Chun was acting like a fool. Even though he was 30 years old, he was still out of shape all day long. She watched Shen Chun staggering about to go out, and suddenly took off her shoes and looked at Shen Chun. The back of his head hit him hard. There was just a bang sound, and the shoe happened to hit the ground, causing Shen Chun's head to tilt forward. When the shoe hit the ground, it rolled twice. He put his hand on the back of his head and turned around to look, and found that after seeing a shoe on the ground, Shen Chun became a little angry. "What are you doing? Are you mentally ill? If you are sick, see a doctor. Don't give up on treatment." "Okay," Lily sneered in her heart, but she suppressed the urge to beat her to death. His impulse. "You mean you never thought about marrying me?" From Shen Chun's point of view, he has already said what he said, and some things don't need to be made so obvious. Lily Song used to be more sensible, and he didn't want to talk about it, so she stopped mentioning it. Now that he had made it clear that he didn't want to say anything, she still kept asking questions. He was angry and cursed. "I said forget it, what do you mean you keep asking? I'm still young and have never thought about getting married. If you can't wait, you can find someone to marry. I wish you a happy marriage." "Okay, After he finished speaking, he waved his hand and sneered, "Crazy, I won't get married, I don't want to get married to you, do you hear me clearly?" After he said this, he turned around and walked out of the courtyard gate without looking at Lily's face. When Shen Chun spoke just now, he did not control his volume. Everyone who was discussing things in the main hall could hear clearly. The group of old people came out one after another and saw Lily standing in the yard, with no shoes on one foot. No more. Thinking of Shen Chun's crazy shouting just now, Shen Chun's grandfather in the crowd was the first to ask, "Ziahe, what's going on? What happened to you and Xiao Chun?" "It's nothing." Lily shook her head calmly, "I just wanted to ask him if he was going to marry me." She lowered her head and hid the cold look in her eyes. "He said he never thought about marrying me, so don't mention it again in the future." After she said this, she picked up her shoes and prepared to enter the house. Shen Chun's grandfather suddenly started to curse, "This little bastard, he is going to cause trouble. I'll go find him and explain clearly what he means. It stands to reason that when the children are old, it's time to get married. Xiao Song is already in her 20s. When we reached her age, we already had 2 children. Now there is no clear idea about the relationship between the 2 of them, and Xiao Chun is left. The one who pushed me to the right, and now I ask him, he still says he won't get married. No wonder the child is sad. Girls are thin-skinned. Xiao Chun did something wrong this time." Everyone said something to me, but Lily ignored it and was minding her own business. Going back to the house, Mr. Shen was so angry outside that he wanted to find Shen Chun on the spot. Lily returned to the original owner's room according to her memory, locked the door, and then breathed a sigh of relief. She beat Shen Chun up, and now because Shen Chun was forced to tell her that he didn't want to marry her, everyone would think that she was the victim. She was injured and hid and refused to see anyone. There are still 3 months until the Taoist Association comes, and she is not prepared to miss this big event. In the plot, Lily Song died in that yard, and her hatred of Lily must be avenged for her. Whether it was the evil ghost there, the living corpse, or the female ghost who was finally resurrected through Lily Song's body, she would definitely avenge the original owner. It's just that the original owner's strength is low now. When she just hit Shen Chun, her hands were limp and weak, and there was almost no spiritual power in her body. If she went to that ancient house in the state, she would definitely die, so these 3 months she has to hide and practice Taoism diligently during the time, and her martial arts must not fall behind. Her martial arts value is already very high now, almost reaching its peak state, so as long as she practices well in these 3 months, she will be able to do that for the original owner. Bad breath. Lily tentatively stretched her muscles, wondering if the original owner was already old, and her previous basic training was not good, so it was a bit difficult to lower her waist. Although it was uncomfortable, Lily's biggest advantage was that she could bear it, so this pain was very painful. She almost forgot about it, and after stretching her muscles for a while, she began to practice the star training technique. As the spiritual power was gradually introduced into the body, Lily also began to recite the scriptures of the Tao Te Ching silently in her heart. She did the physical exercises in conjunction with the Tao Te Ching. She only did a dozen movements for the first time, and her whole body was already big, drenched in sweat. Due to time constraints, Lily gritted her teeth and endured. As soon as she had completed 15 movements, there was a knock on the door. "Ziahe, open the door." A woman's worried voice rang outside the door. When she heard there was no movement in the room, she knocked twice more. "I have something to tell you. If there is something unhappy between you and Shen Chun, I either go and talk to your grandmaster, or else, we don't want to go to that association in more than 3 months. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan ERWR. Chapter 1188. The person who came was Lily Song's mother. She heard someone talking about the quarrel between Shen Chun and Lily in the afternoon. After knowing the whole story, she became extremely angry. However, she was introverted and obedient and married into a traditional family like the Song family. Because I didn't have a son, so I didn't have much confidence. I was angry and saw that my father-in-law and husband didn't say anything, so I came to comfort my daughter. Lily had known for a long time that people in the courtyard would come to comfort her. When she heard Mother Song's words, she slowly stopped her movements. As her martial arts and mental strength increased, she was now practicing faster. A lot. She had only done 15 movements in the physical training, but the muscles and veins in her body had already begun to retain spiritual power. She wiped the sweat from her head and then went to open the door. Mother Song stood outside the door worriedly, looking at her. She was sweating profusely, her cheeks were slightly red, and she seemed to be full of energy. Mother Song thought she had cried, and couldn't help but feel even more distressed. Chen Chun, well, forget it, I'll go find his mother later and have a good talk. Mom, no need. Lily stretched out her hand to hold Mother Song, and shook her head. He doesn't want to marry me, and I don't necessarily want to marry him. No one should mention this matter again in the future, and you shouldn't go to the master either. Tell me what to say, lest Dad talks about you again later. Song's mother has a meek and introverted temperament. Because she gave birth to a daughter and married into a traditional family like the Song family, she did not have a son to carry on the family line, so she has been unable to hold her head up. She usually has a sense of presence at home. Not high. Today, everyone held a meeting and decided to let Lily go to the association. If other people asked Lily to go, it would be fine. If Song's mother told her, she might not succeed, and Song's father would definitely complain. Precisely because of her timid and cautious character, her daughter Lily Song also developed a look like a saw-mouthed gourd. I tolerate a man like Shen Chun as long as I can and never say anything. Mother Song was actually very uneasy in her heart. When she heard what her daughter said, she felt a little worried. Lily is 26 years old. She is not young. At her age, if she were in the village, other girls would have already married and had children. However, there had been no movement from Shen Chun before, and the Shen family had never mentioned coming to propose marriage. In fact, my daughter's appearance is not bad, she is even quite cute, but it was delayed because of her boyfriend, Shen Chun. Mother Song was a little dissatisfied when she thought of this. If he doesn't want to marry, why didn't he tell me earlier? I'm just saying this now. I've wasted you for years in vain, she muttered. Lily sighed, I'm fine, I just don't want to see her recently. Mom, I want to be quiet for a while. After hearing what her daughter said, Mother Song suddenly said, how about I find some boys and you can look at each other? Now is the time when I should practice hard so that I can save my life at an event held by the Taoist and Buddhist Association in more than 3 months. How can I have time to go on a blind date? Although Song's mother had good intentions. But she is worrying blindly. Not to mention that she is not so anxious. Even Lily Song herself may not be able to do what Shen Chun said. He would not marry her one moment and hurriedly went on a blind date the next moment. If Shen Chun knew about it, I'm afraid you might even think that you want to take revenge on him and deliberately make yourself look bad. I don't want to think about this for the time being. I'm really fine. Mom, you don't have to worry. What's more, although Lily forced Shen Chun to say not to marry her today. But I'm afraid in the eyes of the old people. He probably thought that the 2 children were quarrelsome, so he might not be relieved. Grandpa Shen Chun chased his grandson out today, probably because he thought there was still room for redemption. In this way, everyone would stare at Shen Chun and not necessarily pay attention to him. It just so happened that I had this time to practice hard for 3 months. After all, everyone thought that she was hurt and would let her calm down. Although Mother Song was still a little worried, her daughter had already said so. She had been used to being submissive all her life and had no idea. After hearing her coaxing, she nodded and stopped talking. However, she was still a little worried before leaving. Of Shen Chun said this that day, and he probably knew that his family would be looking for him, so he ran away from home that day. He probably spent the night at a friend's house and did not come back. He called her at home, but he didn't answer. Shen Chun's parents came to the door and scolded Shen Chun. Now that things have happened, even if Lily Song's parents are unhappy, they can't see Shen Chun's parents. Naturally, there are some words that I can't say. After all, this is the relationship. If Shen Chun doesn't obey, he can't let his son be beaten to death. He just said that the child is still young, and no one can control what happens in the future. Perhaps it was precisely because of such a commotion that Shen Chun and Lily's marriage was gradually put on hold in the hearts of these people. During this period of time, Lily spent most of her time at home, apart from eating and bathing, practicing physical and Taoist techniques behind closed doors. The original owner was usually a silent person, so now that she was locked up and not showing her face, everyone it was not surprising. She just thought she was severely hurt by Shen Chun. Even her grandfather, who was usually the most dignified, lowered his voice when talking to Lily. In this way, 3 months passed in a flash. In the past 3 months, Lily has been practicing every day, and now she has quite a lot of spiritual power in her body. She can also perform some of the Taoist magic to seal ghosts in the Tao Te Ching. Song's mother has already come to the door and says it was the Grand Master who wanted to see her. Several elders in the alley were setting up a table of chess. 2 old men in tang suits sat face to face. White smoke rose from the hot tea on the table. A table was placed next to it. The master was leaning on the table and drawing talisman paper. Seeing this scene, Lily thought that it was time for her to draw talisman paper. She had been practicing physical skills and Tao Te Ching for 3 months. Now she was good at physical skills and had spiritual power, but after all, time was short, and if she were to deal with ordinary ghosts, the old people in the alley might not be her match. However, these old people were not from well-known and decent families or from some hidden tribe. At most, they were slightly better than the people from the Taoist Research Association. But it cannot be compared with the hidden family with real inheritance. If she encounters such a powerful ghost, she will need the help of talismans. In the plot, Lily Song entered the ancient building because the Taoist Association wanted to promote it. She didn't see anything really powerful inside, but she was in trouble when she met the accomplice of the evil ghost. Lily had to prepare some. If she drew more talismans on her body, there would be nothing wrong. When she entered the alley, several old people raised their heads and glanced at her. My uncle's surname was Chi. He was over 80 years old this year. He was the oldest among the brothers. He looks about 50 or 60 years old, and what he drew is a piece of talisman paper for town house. Among the nearby villages, this kind of talisman paper is the most popular. Mr. Chi has an upright temperament and is not a sneaky person, so the talisman paper he sells is usually the best selling. To draw talismans, it is not just about the appearance, but also about whether it has spiritual power. Otherwise, if the mental power is not enough, even drawing 100 pictures will not help. He only drew 3 pictures a day, and if he drew too much, he wouldn't have enough power in his body. When Lily came over, he noticed it, but he didn't stop. It is best to draw the talisman in one go. Once it is interrupted, the power gathered inside will be dispersed. There was already some sweat on the old man's forehead. When he finished drawing a piece of talisman paper, Lily saw a gray layer of faint spiritual energy floating on it. It was not very deep, but compared to those talisman papers drawn randomly outside, the talisman drawn by Mr. Chi does have some effect. He finished drawing the talisman paper, pressed it with paper and waited for the ink to dry. Then he put the brush aside and washed his hands in the basin beside him. Then he wiped his hands with the handkerchief and glanced at Lily. Ask gently. Ziahe, this time the people from the Taoist Association asked us to go to Nanyang Pass in 15 days. It was originally planned that you and Xiaochun would go, but now, Xiaochun has not come back. If you don't want to go, my uncle will find someone else. Everyone has heard about the dispute between Lily and Shenchun. Recently, Shenchun used the excuse that he wanted to start a reselling business with a friend and hid out without coming back. Grandpa Shen called. I scolded him several times in the past and asked him to come back and resolve the matter. He started to get impatient and talked back. When I called him the next few times, he directly added his home phone number to the blacklist and couldn't make any calls at all. It is precisely because of this matter that Shenchun's grandfather has not even dared to see the Song family recently. It was obvious that the two senior brothers had a good relationship in the past, but recently when the old guys were chatting and eating, they all hid in the house and did not like to come out. Faced with this situation, Qi Lao was also very helpless. There's nothing wrong with me. I've figured it out. If Shenchun doesn't want to marry me, I don't have to marry him, Lily replied calmly. She didn't want to marry Shenchun and that's why she made such a fuss. If it wasn't for the purpose of taking time to practice in these 3 months, she wouldn't bother to have that scene with Shenchun. Now that time has passed, she is not afraid of Shenchun coming to pester her again. With her current skills, Shenchun don't think about touching her as easily as before. As for who Shenchun likes, it has nothing to do with her. She doesn't care if Shenchun is with her along the way. She is not the original owner, and Shenchun's existence cannot affect her thoughts. Originally, the old man was already mentally prepared that Lily would refuse this trip. He was thinking that all the brothers would find this trip embarrassing and unwilling to go. If he really couldn't do it, he would go on his own. Although they are old and cannot withstand the hardships, there are so many people living and eating in the hutongs nowadays. It is okay for young people and they can have their own jobs outside. However, the elderly have long been accustomed to this line of work and cannot contribute much. Drawing some talisman paper is obviously not as good as the one I could make a living in the early years. To live, you have to open your mouth, and you have to eat. The Taoist Association has money and goes there once a year. A family of dozens of people like this can spend a long time frugally. This money cannot be lost. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan ERWR. Chapter 1189. But the old man named Qi didn't expect that Lily would agree to go at this time. Mr. Qi glanced at Lily in surprise and breathed a sigh of relief. It's fine if you want to go. My good boy, you are a sensible person. Lily shook her head. Uncle, can I just ask for some talismans? What are you doing with the talismans? Mr. Qi touched the beard on his chin and said with a smile, this time, I will draw some talismans for you to defend yourself. The rituals performed by the Taoist Association every year are just a formality. Take a photo, it's for others to see, so you don't have to worry. No, Lily wanted to draw on the talisman paper, and she wanted a lot. Her family has always been financially poor, so the elderly are more frugal. She wanted a lot, but she didn't necessarily get it. Although the original owner had a job before, the salary in this rural place was not high and it was very tedious. Lily left the job immediately after entering the mission. Her family was considerate of her, so she had trouble with Shenchun and did not tell her about it. The original owner himself she didn't have much money, but there were a lot of things like cinnabar talisman and paper. She had to draw more for self-defense. I'm just thinking that if I'm going to participate in this event, what if someone sees me young and asks me to draw a talisman paper to try my skills? As soon as Lily said this, several old people wrinkled involuntarily. Come brow. The situation she mentioned may indeed happen. She is too young, and it is inevitable that some people will think that she is faking it. It is not impossible for her to show off her abilities. So I want to practice for a while before I go, so that I won't have stage fright when I draw. When Lily said this, several people nodded, thinking that what she said made sense. In this case, I still have a stack of newly bought yellow paper. You can try it first. As for cinnabar, I also have it. I will draw a few pictures for you first. You can compare them and try them. As long as the drawing is in good form, it will be fine. Okay. When the old man said this, Lily naturally agreed. Someone from the Taoist Association had already booked the flight and called her to tell her the flight information and time. At that time, all she had to do was go there with her ID card. During this time, Lily had made it clear that she was going to practice drawing talismans. Naturally, no one in the family would bother her anymore. Half a month passed in a flash, and she used cinnabar to it was made by adding my own essence and blood, and I drew a lot of talisman papers and put them in the bag. Because these talisman papers are added with her essence and blood, they are more powerful than ordinary talisman papers, and she has been raising them at home these days. The Tao Te Ching and physical training skills were also left behind, so they did not have a deep impact on her. Shen Chun came back the night before departure. When he came back, no one noticed it. It was only when he was about to go out the next morning that the people of the Song family were surprised to know that he was back. After not seeing him for 3 months, he still looks the same, wearing a white suit. He works as a manager of a foreign trade company in the provincial capital. At the same time, he is not willing to give up. He has invested in some small business in partnership with a group of college classmates. He has a flexible mind and has not made a lot of money so far, but to the people in the village, he is undoubtedly scenic. I used to come back once a week, but in the past few months, I guess I was annoyed by my family, and I didn't come back once for more than 3 months. This was after Lily had trouble with him last time. See him again. When he saw Lily appear carrying a huge army green canvas bag, Chen Chun frowned unconsciously. The package of Lily is not small. It was bought by Mr. Song when he was young. Things from that era were sturdy. It has been used for decades now, and some of the broken parts have been repaired. It still works. This package is not small, but it doesn't look very good. Compared with Shen Chun's dark purple cowhide suitcase, it is indeed not upscale enough. He has an expression of disgust on his face, and he has no intention of hiding it at all. The small half of it was filled with talisman papers, and the remaining empty space contained a few pieces of dry food and a change of clothes that Song's mother had stuffed in. According to the previous rules, Song's trip would be delayed for at least 10 days, so Song mother packed 3 sets of clothes for Lily, as well as some of the girls' belongings. When the Shen family members saw Lily, they looked a little embarrassed and rubbed their hands to say hello. Shen Chun sat down on his suitcase and glanced at Lily with a sneer. "You." He was about to speak, the grandfather glared at him fiercely, obviously knowing his grandson's character and knowing that he would never be obedient when he opened his mouth. "What time is the flight?" "Don't be late." Father Shen tried to smooth things over and asked everyone to carry Lily's luggage. Everyone was afraid that it would be too late to catch the plane, so they would rather wait a little longer than go out at the right time. The plane took us to Naniaguan in the provincial capital. It was still a 3-hour drive from the provincial capital. When we arrived in the provincial capital, it was quite a distance from the airport. Therefore, although the flight took off at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we didn't have to wait until 3 o'clock in the morning. I got up when I arrived and was about to go out at about 4 o'clock. Everyone carried their things and went out. The elders walked in front and Lily walked behind. Shen Chun watched and then fell behind. He approached Lily and whispered, "You are still the same as before, using a bag. You are so earthy. Do you think you are a woman?" He is really a strange person. He doesn't want to marry Lily Song, but he still wants to pick and choose what others use. The more Lily looked at his face, the more impatient she became. She moved her fingers, resisting the urge to hit him, and sneered twice, since you dislike me for being such a bastard, why don't you be a good person and spend money on me, buy a new one. If you carry such a new bag, will it give you an extra piece of flesh, or will it keep you full? Lily didn't lower her voice. Seeing that Shenshan was willing to stay behind and join Lily, the elders who were walking in front thought that the two people had quarreled before and now they got back together. They were all happy to see the result and walked faster on purpose. He wanted to give them some space. Unexpectedly, in just a few words, without one of them paying attention, the two of them seemed to be quarreling again. Song Changqing frowned and couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong?" "It's okay," Shenshan replied with a smile, and was about to catch up with the adults when Lily said loudly, "He thinks my bag is ugly and old, and he also asked me if I was a woman. I won't marry you. You don't care what kind of bag I use, whether it's a woman or not, there are so many people outside, why don't you take care of them all?" Lily rolled her eyes, and after she said this, Song Changqing's face became a little ugly. He has the same personality as his father, serious and old-fashioned, and he cherishes his things very much. The bag Lily is carrying this time was bought by Song Changqing when he was young. In the past, Shenshan said that he didn't want to marry Lily. Although the elders of the two families met a little awkwardly, in Song Changqing's heart, he only regarded Shenshan as a child, and how could he care about it with him? But this time, Shenshan disliked his bag. Song Changqing suddenly became angry and his eyes turned cold. "Lily, why don't you go faster? What are you doing so slowly?" He couldn't talk to other people's children, and the Shen family was still here. Song Changqing could only scold his daughter. After he shouted, Lily responded and ran towards him. The Shen family was really embarrassed and angry. It was so good that Shenshan wanted to stir up trouble again. But when the child got older, she couldn't help her mother. When the child got older, she had her own ideas, but she wouldn't listen to him. She also got angry when she talked too much. No, they just ran away. He could only apologize to Song Changqing desperately, but Shenshan still glared at Lily bitterly, as if she had betrayed him. When they arrived in the provincial capital, their parents naturally stopped sending them off, and each told their children to come back early. When they took the airport bus to the airport, the two of them didn't say a few words along the way. At noon, Shenshan found a place to eat in the airport. He thought Lily was a country bumpkin and thought she had never flown before. He deliberately didn't talk to her at the airport. Firstly, he wanted to retaliate against her for complaining in the morning. Secondly, he also deliberately wanted to make her confused and panic, so that she could beg him. Thirdly, Lily was carrying an old bag, just like a migrant worker from the countryside who came to work in the city. He was indeed a little embarrassed, so he took it upon himself to they went to eat together and left Lily in front of the airport. The Song family was not rich, and life was tight. The food at the airport was expensive and not very delicious. Song's mother had prepared some dry steamed buns for Lily early in the morning. She just took them out to eat at this moment. After drinking a bottle of cold water from an empty mineral water bottle at home, Lily stood up, threw the things away, picked up her luggage and went to get the ticket. There were talismans in her luggage. These things were too important to be missed, so she did not check the luggage, but carried the bag into the waiting room. Shenshan didn't come back until Lily had already boarded the plane. When he saw Lily, he was surprised. "How did you get in? You can't come in even though you have a ticket?" He really thinks that he is omnipotent, even if he is a fool and has never flown on a plane. There are so many service desks in the airport and he can just ask at any one of them. Lily was too lazy to pay attention to her, closed her eyes, tilted her head and closed her eyes to rest on the plane. When the plane landed at Nanyang Pass, it was already past 6 o'clock in the afternoon. The Taoist and Buddhist Research Association was very wealthy. Not only had they already booked a hotel, they also had connecting airport services. There were several people on this flight. Everyone who was going to the association got into the car one after another. In addition to Lily and the other two, there was also a monk wearing grey monk robes pushing a yellow suitcase, and a middle-aged woman wearing a tang suit. Everyone glanced at each other, nodded and smiled. Shen Chun was wearing sunglasses and looked very cool. He refused to talk to anyone and was speechless all the way to the arranged hotel. He then pushed his luggage back to the room. Shen Chun didn't want to chat with Lily, so he took the room card and took the elevator to leave. Lily went back to the room to take a shower, and practiced 2 sets of star training. It wasn't until almost 11 o'clock in the evening that anyone hit her. The room phone number said that she was summoned for a meeting. Asking for a monthly ticket. I don't even know how I survived. Hey, I finally made up for the updates I owed. There's another chapter to come, a total of 18,000 words. I'm vomiting blood. Please give me your monthly vote. To be continued. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1190. Almost the entire hotel for this grand event has been booked by the Taoist and Buddhist Research Association. People from all over the country are staying in the hotel. The huge conference room on the 5th floor of the hotel is already densely packed. Man, when Lily came in, Shen Chun hadn't arrived yet. The leader, a middle-aged man wearing a suit and tie with a pair of glasses on his nose, pushed up the frame of his glasses and asked with a non-smiling smile, "Miss Song, what's wrong?" Mr. Shen didn't come down. Almost all of the dozens of people sitting in the conference room are elderly. Except for Lily, who just came in, they all look like worldly masters, with a somewhat indifferent expression. In fact, the association is obviously very unhappy about Uncle Chi sending 2 young people here this time. What kind of business they are doing? In fact, everyone knows in their hearts that people in the world value appearances, and they hope that the one sent by Mr. Chi should be a watcher. An old man with an air of immortality, no matter how bad he is, he should be an older man. It seems that he is capable and someone who will be trusted very much. But he didn't expect that this time it was 2 young men and women who came. In this way, let alone making people believe that they have any real ability to catch monsters and subjugate demons, I am afraid it is not even clear whether they have any real ability. Especially the man surnamed Shen. As soon as he arrived, he treated this trip as a tourist attraction. When he came back, he threw away his things and went out to play. Even after calling back to the room, no one was there. The Taoist Association was able to provide air tickets, book hotels, and pay for them to come, so that they could cooperate more, not to let him come to enjoy the mountains and rivers. Thinking of this, the middle-aged man in a suit pursed his lips. "Miss Song, you know the purpose of inviting you here. It's best for everyone to cooperate. This will be good for you and us people with ability look down on the Taoist Association. But without the money given by the Taoist Association every year, these people would not be able to survive no matter how talented they were, and they would be driven to the countryside." Mr. Song not only disobeyed the arrangements. He also told people that there are no ghosts in the world and that we are magic sticks. This is the most irritating point. The people invited by the Taoist Association actually specifically demolished his own platform. How could a middle-aged man in a suit endure this? It was okay not to open her mouth before, but when she spoke now, she wished she could vent all her anger on Lily. Lily stretched out her hand to straighten her hair, walked to an empty seat, pulled up a chair and sat down. "He has nothing to do with me. Although he came with me, it's the same whether he comes with me or not. If he says that again, just do whatever you want." The middle-aged man in a suit heard this. After a moment of silence, he tugged at his tie angrily. "Okay, Forget it if he doesn't come. He patted the marble table angrily and raised his chin. The man next to him was holding a large stack of information. He handed out the things in his hands one by one. The middle-aged man adjusted his emotions and spoke slowly. This is not the first time that this kind of event has been held. I believe everyone knows that it is still the same old rule as in previous years. There will be reporters and photographers accompanying you. You don't have to worry about safety. Where we are going this time, it is an ancient house in Yunyang, Nanjiang. He first talked about the general matters, and then began to explain the origin of this ancient house. This ancient house was originally built in the late Qing dynasty, and the original owner was a retired man who returned to his hometown. 5th grade Tongzi. This house was built not long ago, but Tongzi's family died here, and the house was regarded as a haunted house. Since then, it has changed hands several times. The people who live here are either crazy or seriously ill, and are said to be haunted by ghosts. For example, the favorite place of the Taoist and Buddhist Association is this place, which is full of mystery and a bit scary. But in the eyes of the people, there is a group of people with great supernatural powers who can overcome all difficulties, defeat all odds and conquer all unknowns. In fact, in Lily's opinion, this kind of behavior is like an alternative variety show. Because it is fresh and has some traditional colors, it attracts attention. Although the public does not believe in superstition, they are very fond of this kind of ghost-catching and demon-killing program, which feels contradictory. It is precisely because of this that once the Taoist and Buddhist Research Association holds such a project every year, it can always attract a large amount of sponsorship and the support of many businesses, and the ratings hit new highs year after year. It is broadcast like this in the early days. The money that could be earned was more than 10 digits, so even though Mr. Chi and others thought this method was stupid, these people still enjoyed it every year. After the Republic of China, either no one dared to buy the house, or someone bought it and something happened soon after they moved in. Then a warlord named Yuan entered the house. The middle-aged man in a suit flipped through the information and motioned for everyone to do the same. After looking at it, he continued to explain. This warlord named Yuan was a lustful man. He married dozens of concubines in a row. I don't know if it was because of retribution. None of these women gave him a son and a half, until he robbed a woman, raped her, and finally made her pregnant. Warlord Yuan was so happy that the woman gave birth to a daughter in 10 months of pregnancy. Although she is not a son, her daughter is not bad, at least she can be considered a child. If you want to carry on the family line, you will probably find a son-in-law in the future. When Miss Yuan was 15 years old, she was as beautiful as a pearl, had a docile temperament, and was well educated and courteous. The warlord surnamed Yuan did not know if she had accumulated virtues in her previous life. She did not know a single Chinese character and was fierce-looking. As a result, she had a son. My daughter is so lovely. He regarded his only daughter as the apple of his eye. He doted on her very much and took her with him wherever she went. When she was 15, he took a fancy to this ancient house, and then hired an onmyoji to see it. He renovated the house to make it more beautiful. It was much grander than before, and I moved in after it was completed. And during this move, Miss Yuan died inside. She did not survive the age of 17. The middle-aged man finished telling the story and put his hand on the document. We don't know how Miss Yuan died. This is a suspense, just waiting for you to find it out. This house has been taken a liking to by someone from Beijing. This man was once the founding general of the People's Republic of China and is planning to move to Yunyang to retire. Yunyang is famous throughout the country. It is a land of longevity, with beautiful scenery, good air, and pleasant climate. It is very suitable for people to settle here. Many wealthy people like to buy houses there for retirement. Many dignitaries will settle here after retirement. House prices have increased in the past 2 years. It is growing very fast. 1 square meter in the city center has reached hundreds of thousands per square meter. Lily flipped through the information. The ancient house shown above covers an area of nearly 6 acres. It has everything you need in a covered bridge and water village. The photo was taken from an aerial photo. Even if you only glimpsed a corner of the house, you can already imagine how valuable this house is. Philippines, and especially this kind of inherited house, has been classified as a protected cultural relic by the country over the years. Now the person who wants to buy this house has the ability to get it. You can imagine how powerful he is. The aerial photography of this house was during the day, but there was still an air of gloominess in the photo. The original owner died here. She was extremely afraid of this house, but Lily just took a look at it and read these things without changing her expression. The information is covered. So we can enter this house before it is bought or sold. If it is bought or sold, we can't go in again. If important people live there, the place will definitely be divided into areas. Think about this ancient house, there are so many legends in it. The colors, and the beautiful Miss UN, who died young and died in this house, added countless legends to this house. We haven't received permission to enter this place when we took this photo, but in about 10 days, the permission will be issued. When you get the key, you can go in together and find out the secrets of this house. And I can also clean up the house for Mr. Qu. When the middle-aged man in a suit said this, he stretched out his hand to push up his glasses. As for Miss Song, she can increase her appearance in this time. Although Lily doesn't look like it, she has an air of immortality and strong Taoist skills, but what makes her better is that she is young and beautiful. Her beauty is not inferior to that of celebrities, and is even better than many celebrities. Think of the legend of beauty and ancient house, it's not without its gimmicks. In addition, Miss UN was also said to be a beauty and died in this house. In the later explanation, she will be given a poignant love story that almost middle-aged men can imagine. If this event is successful, I'm afraid how much money will be earned. When Lily heard this, her expression was thoughtful. What the middle-aged man in a suit said is that they have not yet obtained the right to enter this house. In other words, these people are really unaware of whether this house is clean or not. This middle-aged man still wants to make benefits. There are powerful people in the house. She knew about ghosts. She thought about it and felt that she had better remind this person, and she would accept his wishes whether he listened or not. Is this house clean? Aren't you going to ask someone to check it out? As soon as she said these words, not only the middle-aged man laughed, but also everyone present laughed. Who can I invite? We are in this business ourselves, why do we need to invite others to come and see us? Isn't this a loss of our own reputation? A fat monk couldn't help but laughed, and everyone else laughed along with him. Young man, always are you ignorant and saying such things to make people laugh, or should Mr. Chi come here in person? What do children know? The middle-aged man in a suit also laughed, and finally said, don't say things like this again in the future. We rely on this industry for a living. Besides, there must be no problem with the house. Our association has been running for so many years. Have you seen any problems? Last year, an old man named Ding came to your place. I've been standing here for a long time and it still feels too safe, but I didn't expect you to be timid. This house has a sinister atmosphere. Lily picked up the information. Under the light, the house in the photo looked green and faint. There is obviously something wrong. I advise you to consider it carefully. She came here this time. She had no intention of letting go of the female ghost in the house, but with so many lives present, she also warned her. The update is coming. Although I am thick-skinned and have little moral integrity, I guarantee at least 2 updates every day, one update of 3,000 words. I have completed all the updates I owed before. You can count them. I don't want to update late. I know it's not easy for little darlings to stay up late to watch movies. But if you think about it, if I can go to bed early, I don't want to be reading novels at 4 o'clock, really, I can act without makeup. Panda. So please give me your monthly ticket, please. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1191. Unexpectedly, the middle-aged man was a little unhappy when he heard what she said. He frowned and looked a little impatient. What do you think you know? There is no one here who is more senior than you, so you are here to earn performance. What is yin qi and not yin qi? These elders have eaten more salt than you have eaten rice. If you don't want to go, you can leave and ask your elders to come over. Otherwise, don't blame the association for the money allocated to your family every year. Take it back. If you want to go, just shut up and stop talking. She had already reminded her that Lily was not a merciful person. Since she reminded them and they didn't appreciate it, but all of them looked like they didn't believe it, she didn't bother to say any more and put the information down as acquiescence. Because the procedures for entering the ancient house were not completed, she had to stay in the hotel for a while longer. This ancient house has been passed down for a long time and has become an extremely precious cultural relic. In addition, there is a big shot who wants to buy this place, so the authorities are even more protective. Fortunately, this time the application is from the Taoism and Buddhism Research Association. The people of the Chu family thought that if these people went in, they could check out the feng shui for Mr. Qiu. Otherwise, if it had been anyone else, they wouldn't even be able to touch the edges of the house. Taking advantage of this period of time, Lily spent most of her time practicing in the hotel besides eating and bathing every day. After half a month, the procedures were finally completed, and the middle-aged man in a suit also reminded everyone that it was time to set off. This time, because of the special location, people from the association generously chartered a plane to take everyone to Yunyang. When the plane landed on the ground, everyone had already changed into cassocks or Taoist robes. This was due to the association requirements, must be replaced. This is also one of the advertisements of the association. Lily also wore a ridiculous yellow robe and a small hat. On the other hand, Shenchun refused to compromise. The people in the association were angry with him, but until now, he refused to obey the arrangement. It was impossible to find someone to replace him temporarily. In the end, there was nothing we could do about him, so we had to ask the photographer to try not to take pictures of him. Everyone was warned first not to damage anything inside after entering. Otherwise, even if the flowers, plants, and trees were touched, they would have to take responsibility before the group went in carrying the camera. Something was wrong here. Once the locked courtyard door was opened and a creaking sound was heard, everyone was so frightened that goosebumps stood up all over their bodies. The old door was swaying, and half of the door frame seemed to be falling off, just like the teeth of an old man in his 70s or 80s. The ones that won't fall off grow on the gums and make a scalp-numbing sound when shaken. The fallen lock was still hanging on the rusty door. It was obviously October, but the power of the autumn tiger was still there. It was still very hot outside. Many people were wearing short sleeves and Taoist robes or jackets. Even the monks' robes are too hot. At this moment, when the wind blew out of the courtyard, my whole body was cold and trembling. There was a lot of resentment inside. Why is it so cold all of a sudden? Someone asked, and Shenchun curled his lips. You don't even understand this. No one has lived here for decades. It is deserted. It is normal to be cold. There is no air conditioning or floor heating inside. Do you think that turning on the heater will turn on the heating? It's ridiculous. You call yourself a member of the association. Do you really think there is a ghost? His words were too ugly. As soon as he finished speaking, the other party's face became a little ugly. Shenchun licked his lips, lowered his head and looked in with raised eyebrows. Let me tell you. From elementary school onwards, you should learn more about science when it comes to drawing talismans. Do you understand? Are you still here? Do you really think that your inability to have children is because you didn't pay homage to Guanyin in your previous life, or because you did too many bad things and ended up having no children? He smiled with a scornful look on his face and said, "You don't know that you need to see a doctor for infertility, right?" What he said was so arrogant. In addition to people from the association, there were also a large number of photographers invited. If these people heard it, they would not know what to think behind their backs. The person sent by the association to enter the ancient house with them this time gave him an annoyed look, coughed twice to hide his inner anger, and said in a deep voice, "Mr. Shen, if you won't shut up, please you go back, during this time." "Okay, okay." Shen Chun raised his hands, drooped his eyelids, and stared at the man who spoke as if he was about to smile. "Are you going to ask me to take care of my own air tickets, food, and accommodation again? Every time to threaten people with the same words. Can you change your lines? Can I just shut up?" He raised one corner of his mouth and sneered evilly, making the people in the association so angry that their faces turned blue and white in turns. Chi sneered and said, "Hey." Shen Chun's behavior could easily make people angry to death. Lily looked at the association member and suffered a loss in the argument with him. She checked her backpack and put it on her back. Looking in from the outside, it seems to be covered with a layer of green mist, and the sunlight cannot penetrate at all. The door is a courtyard. According to the layout of a large family's house, this is equivalent to a foyer. At this time, half of the people are living inside. The tall weeds are very dense. When the wind blows, there is a rustling sound. I don't know if it is the sound of the grass shaking when it is blown, or if there is something else in the grass. With the opening of the door, the house seemed to be awakened from a deep sleep. People from the association were already shouting, "Everyone, tie up your trousers. No one has lived here for hundreds of years. There may be poisonous snakes, insects, ants, and the like. Be sure not to get pricked in your legs. You should carry the deworming medicine you prepared early, as well as some trauma medicine. This is not the first time that people from the association have carried out such activities, but this time it is special. Because of the importance of the house, no one has entered here before the procedures are approved. In the past, people from the association would always send people to check the place before entering, and make sure there was no danger before entering. But this time no one came in. People hired by the association searched the area inside and out, but there was nothing dangerous. The house has always been under the protection of the state, and no one has come in before. However, there is no danger on the outside, which does not mean that there are no dangerous snakes, insects, rats, and ants inside. After all, after hundreds of years of being deserted, it is very likely that there will still be encounters inside. To unexpected situations. In order to prevent accidents from happening, after all, the association is looking for money, so the person from the association who sent Lily and others said, "But you can rest assured that everyone has a satellite liaison device with them. If any unexpected situation occurs, for example, if you are bitten by a snake or insect, or if you feel unwell, our people will take you out as soon as possible. Helicopters and ambulances are waiting outside at any time, so you don't have to worry about medical treatment." Everyone nodded, and all preparations continued. Many people began to gather in front of the gate. I don't know if it was everyone's misunderstanding, but a group of people always felt that the surroundings were getting colder and colder. Even Shen Chun, who was smiling just now, felt that something was wrong. It's really weird. The sun is shining brightly outside. Why is it so cold inside? Who has a jacket? He stretched out his hand and pulled up his suit jacket. Originally, he was the most heavily dressed among the people. He felt hot when he got off the plane before, but now he felt so cold that he was shivering all over. His face turned a little blue for a moment, and he couldn't help but ask the people from the association, "Who is it? Do you still have the monk's robe? Where are the cassocks?" Please give me a few more sets, it's too cold. Originally, everyone wore these things issued by the association to represent their identity, but now Shen-chan wanted the Taoist robe for warmth. The person in charge of the association looked a little ugly for a moment, but when he saw the cameras on the side, he endured it again and did not make a fuss with him. He had a cold face and asked someone to get a set of Taoist robes for Shen-chan to wear. A young girl in the crowd who was following a middle-aged woman in a Taoist robe couldn't help laughing. She should be the apprentice or junior brought by the middle-aged woman. This time, there were hundreds of people in the group. In addition to the dozens of people Lily saw at the meeting that day, many Taoist priests and monks also brought their juniors. Obviously no one thought that this trip would be dangerous and regarded it as a tourist. When the girl started to smile, Shen-chan looked out of the corner of his eye. He was handsome and had a bad look on his face, which had a fatal attraction for the young girl. At this time, he was like this looking sideways, the girl's face suddenly turned red and she lowered her head. The moment when the girl bowed her head shyly, Shen-chan was a little interested. He deliberately winked at her. He was wearing a white suit and looked elegant, but outside he was wearing a nondescript gray robe. Looked very funny, and winked at the girl, which made the girl laugh again. She covered her mouth with her hand, her eyes were smiling like crescent moons, she was exceptionally pure and cute. The interaction between the two attracted several young girls to peek over, while Lily stood calmly in the crowd with a backpack on her back. Compared with the cold-looking people around her, Lily looks the best now. Her cheeks were still white and rosy, her expression was calm, and her lips were pursed tightly. Her lips were not black and blue from the cold like others, nor was she holding her arms and shaking with the cold. In fact, the reason why people here feel cold is not because of the weather, but purely because the yin energy here is too strong. There are 3 fires in the human body, which are located on the shoulders and the heavenly spirit cover. When the fire is strong, the yang qi will naturally be sufficient. Once the yang qi is sufficient, evil and sneaky things will naturally not dare to come close. I don't know what is going on here, but the resentment has reached such an extent. With so many people present, even if the door is just closed, the yin qi leaks a little, and these people become like this. The yin qi invades the body, and the yang qi affected, the yin and yang qi are not coordinated, and you will naturally start to feel cold. Asking for a monthly ticket. I hate my dry begging, but I also want to express my feelings. Dion Niang has been smoking recently, and the author has something to say. I would like to use this place to advertise, and there will be no charge if the word count is less than 300. To be continued.